In this video, I'll talk about some subtle mistakes that candidates make in the examination and that can cost them a lot of marks. So, why you're losing marks and you're not even aware of it. The number one mistake would be you're doing the exam but you're not getting the diagnosis. The reason is you may be very well practiced with the examination technique, so you're going through the motions of doing the exam, but when the 5-6 minutes are over and you're ready to face the examiner, you go blank because you were doing the examination kind of like a robot and you didn't pick anything up. Or you might have picked some things up, but you forgot about them. So what can we do to fix this? First of all, first step would be to obviously be very well practiced. So it's your muscle memory to go through the motions of the exam and have the right technique so you can focus on the findings. For the findings, what you can do is make a mental note of everything you're picking up. For example, if you find clubbing, make a mental note, okay, clubbing. And if you find any maybe auscultatory finding, make a mental note, okay, this is bronchial breathing. Another thing that you can do is to actively rule things out. So instead of looking at everything and finding and maybe hoping to find a positive physical finding, think about the things you want to rule out. For example, if it's a cardiovascular examination, you need to actively seek for oscillar notes and clubbing, checking the pulse, actively being mindful of whether it's regular or not and the character, or maybe in the abdominal case, actively looking to rule out any palmar erythema, Dupuytren's contracture, or asterixis. So when you're actively ruling things out, you're kind of narrowing your differentials. So instead of looking at everything and hoping to find a physical finding, you should kind of rule out everything that you're supposed to in the relevant system. So in the respiratory system, again, actively rule out clubbing or nicotine tar stains. Actively look for them. Muscle wasting of the small muscles of the hands. Asterixis in that case. Inspecting the chest carefully. So the rule out method would be a better one and it would really help you make the diagnosis as you go along with the examination instead of putting all the physical findings together at the end because you wouldn't have time and you not everyone is able to do this. Number two is you're forgetting the basics. So cleaning your hands and a good introduction. Sometimes candidates rush into the examination and they forget to sanitize their hands before and after the examination, or they fail to introduce themselves, or they do not ask permission from the patient to examine them. So these are very big blunders, and if the examiner wills, they can, reduce your marks in patient welfare, and you only have a very narrow margin to pass the patient welfare. So what you can do to fix it is when you're practicing before the exam, the examination techniques mimic the motion of using a sanitizer before you start. So it becomes a part of your muscle memory in the exam. You would then always remember that you need to sanitize your hands. You wouldn't forget about it. So even if you're not using a real sanitizer while you're practicing in your daily practices, at least mimic the motion so you don't forget about it. Secondly, even if you're practicing, you're in a rush, you want to cover all the systems, do not forget about the introduction and permission part. Make it a part of your routine, a part of your examination scheme, and thanking the patient at the end. The third thing is you're too quiet. What this means is number one, you're not communicating effectively to the examiners. So let's suppose you know one thing, but you're maybe not confident and you're not saying it. So, they cannot score you for something you're not saying. Secondly, silence would in this case mean, like I mentioned in the first point, while you're examining and you're making a mental note of the physical findings you're picking up, the reason why you're forgetting it while facing the examiners is because not everyone is able to conjure up a visual image of what they're examining. Let's say you found clubbing or maybe palmar erythema. You noted it during the exam, and you made a mental note of it too. But when you face the examiner, you go blank. But a tip that I'd like to offer is, you can mumble to yourself the positive physical finding only. So as some people are, auditory learners, when they're facing the examiner, they're hear their own voice in their head again instead of a mental image. So you're kind of consolidating the finding in your head. the ideal way is to, like I mentioned in the first point, to make a note in your head while you're ruling things out, and then narrowing a differential. And by the time you're done, should have ideally already have a differential in your mind. But if you don't, mumbling those findings to yourself can help you remember, so you can score in the picking up physical findings. So be very vocal about what you found. And if you're not able to justify it might cause you to lose some marks. So you need to be very reasonable with what you found and putting those pieces together. So while you're practicing, practice it in this way if this is what works for you. Obviously, every candidate is different and you to be, self-aware of how things work for you. So trial and error would work, to figuring out what works best for you. Number 4 is you're not handling uncertainty well. So in the exam, they don't expect you to know everything. It's okay to be unsure or not know things, but it's what matters is how you're handling the uncertainty. So if you go into a negative spiral, you lose confidence, you start sweating, you're mumbling. So it can give the examiners a bad impression, and you can start just digging your own grave because you might mess up the things that you know as well. So if you're unsure, it's okay. Stay calm and confident and acknowledge this. Say that I'm not sure. I'm sorry, I'm not aware, or I would like to confirm my findings with this and this. It's okay as long as you're reasonable. It's not a crime, and you might lose some marks, maybe get a borderline, but at least you wouldn't get an unsatisfactory, and you're not going to mess up the chances of answering the next questions that you might have already known. So practice saying, I'm sorry, I'm not sure. It's okay to do so. You're saving time going to the next question and scoring marks and for the next questions. Number 5 is your presentation is unclear. Again, this is very unfortunate because sometimes you know everything, you picked up the physical findings, but you couldn't portray it or convey it to the examiner, so you wouldn't score if you don't say it. They can mark you for something you're not saying. So practice the presentations really, really well. I'm not sure why candidates miss this in their preparation. They very frequently practice long cases and short cases, communications, but they don't practice the presentation part. So when you're doing a long case, let's say, or maybe a short case, always follow it up with a summary, because you might know a case very well, but when it comes to the examiner viva and they say, okay, summarize your case, you go into very details. So that is not required. It needs to be a summary. So that means very brief, very concise, to the point. Save your time and don't annoy the examiners with too much details. They've already observed you taking the history. They just want some. So only the positive physical and history sum are to be summed. The next thing is neglecting patient concerns. This is very important because addressing patient concerns is a separate skill, and if you fail a skill, you fail the whole exam. The reason why candidates mess this up is when they're too confident or they're very excited because they got the diagnosis or they know a case. So what they do is they rush into telling the patient everything they know about it, the condition, its explanation, the investigations, management, everything. But maybe that is not the patient concern. Maybe he's just concerned about going home to his kids, or maybe he wants to know if his children will get this condition. Maybe he's scared of if something being cancer. That is not his concern what you're telling him. So you might lose marks. So do not go into a trade of explanation. Ask the patient first, what are your concerns, and then answer very briefly and to the point. Just one line answer is sufficient. Wait for them to ask again or ask another question, or if it's unclear to them, they'll ask you again, okay, can you please clarify, and then go into the details instead of offering a very detailed explanation, because this is not a communication. This is the long clinical consultation part. Coming to the communication, you need to address again the patient's concern periodically, because they will be dispersed throughout the 10 minutes as opposed to obviously a long clinical consultation. And when you address them, you can ask, are you following me, or was I clear, is there anything else that you'd like to ask this repeatedly till they're left with no questions. So that is a way that you can score satisfactory in the patient concern part. Seventh thing is time management. So this happens when you're not practicing with a timer. You might take too long to examine something, or you might rush it, or you're left with too much time and you don't know how to utilize it, and you might miss some things. So, to fix it, please practice everything with a timer. Short cases, use a timer, practice to examine a short case within 5 minutes. You'll be given 6 minutes in the exam, but practice within 5 minutes. And before you know it, you'll be able to do it within 3 minutes effectively. Next thing, for the long clinical consultation, roughly take maximum 8 minutes for history, 5 minutes for examination, and 2 minutes for concerns. This is a rough estimate, but this is the maximum that you need to go in the history. You can finish your history in within 6 minutes too, if you want to spend more time. So while you're practicing with the timer, you're subconsciously building a habit of finishing the history within 8 minutes. So you wouldn't even need to look at the time or the clock there. So please practice with the time, not skip it. The last thing is not showing confidence even when you know things. So again, this is unfortunate because you know everything, but your nerves get the best of you. So while you're examining, while you're preparing with your study partners or study groups, practice in front of two or three people, mimicking the real body language that you would display there. So the posture, the eye contact, uh, the way that you speak, your your cadence of your speech, the speed with which you're speaking. So it should be very clear and slow and steady. So be very confident, even if you're not, kind of like fake it till you make it. Practice it very frequently, and if you think you get nervous in exam situations, it's okay. It happens to the best of us. So to avoid that, desensitize yourself by practicing with groups before the exam. So if, with time you'll get more confident. If you prepared well, if you know your stuff, you'll be confident. This is just to sum everything up. Please be mindful. These seem like very subtle mistakes, but all of this can be fixed during your preparation. So, just some take home messages would be: practice the exact way that you will be performing in the exam. You can't expect to save some things that, okay, I'll do this in the exam and not do it while practicing. So, a timer every time, introduction, mimicking the motions of using a hand sanitizer at the beginning and the end, asking about, introducing yourself, asking for permission, asking for concerns. This is everything you need to, be well prepared for the exam. So if you want to do an online mock examination, you can send me a DM and register for it. It's mimicking the and simulating the real exam format: two LCCs, two communications, and four short stations. After the session is done, we can have a discussion about the feedback, and a written feedback according to the RCP criteria will be sent to you. And if you want to do a communication and LCC course, I'm offering that as well. It's a one-on-one session for 10 days, 1 hour each day, covering one LCC and communication, and written feedback, and the answer key would be sent back to you every day. And if you just want a quick revision, a crash course for communication, it's a 3-day session, and every high yield important topic would be discussed. So if you're interested, you can send me a DM, follow PACES Guide on Instagram, and if you have any queries, you can leave a comment below. Thank you for listening.